Hi everyone and welcome to this episode of Kipet Labs. In today's video we're going to be discussing the concept of respiration. That is the process that powers each of our cells. So in the past we've talked about this idea of your body being made up of cells. All living things have cells as their building blocks that come together and build together to make tissues and make organs that work together in organ systems. But we need to think about how do we power a cell? That is, how does a cell actually work? One of the ways that we can think about cells sometimes is to think about them like little factories that help, have parts moving inside them. They've got systems, they've got processes, they've got things that allow them to function and to work in the way that they need to work. And so then thinking, okay, well, how do we actually do that? And so this is where this process of respiration comes in. Okay, so we're going to spend some time in this video understanding a little bit more about the process of respiration, where it happens and what it's for. Okay, so we've said that respiration is the process that powers the cell. Okay, this idea that it's a chemical reaction. So it actually involves chemicals kind of moving in and out of the cell, changing from one substance into another substance during this process, and involves the energy release. That's the simple way to put it. Now, respiration and kind of the processes that happen inside the cell are actually quite complicated, and we're going to look at them in a fairly broad kind of way at the moment. But as you study things further on, if you go on and study biology more in the future, that you'll learn a little bit more about the complex mechanisms that work here. But the idea is that it's a chemical reaction that involves or allows the cell to access energy. Okay, and so so let's talk about the chemical process now. So respiration involves two substances going in to form two other substances. So we start with the main kind of energy source in the cell, which is the chemical we call glucose. That is, it's a simple sugar. The food that you eat, the carbohydrates that you eat, all break down to become this substance called glucose. And glucose pairs up with oxygen that we breathe in, so oxygen from the air around us, that the two things combine together and they're chemically changed. We rearrange them together to form two new substances. We form carbon dioxide and water. Carbon dioxide we end up breathing out, and then water we get rid of through excretion, so basically in urine. And we also breathe out some of it as well. So we turn glucose plus oxygen into carbon dioxide and water. Now, just for interest's sake, not because you have to know it, but because it's good to know, I'll write down the chemical formulas of the substances that are this as well. So glucose is called C6H12O6 plus oxygen, which is O2, and then we form carbon dioxide, which is CO2, and water, which is H2O. Okay, and so this is our chemical reaction. Okay, so this gives you that little bit of extra detail. I'll put it in brackets here, just because this is in the nice to know category. You don't need to know that too deeply at this stage. But so that this idea that all of the atoms in these substances that we have here get rearranged and broken down and changed and reconnected into two new substances that we need to get rid of. And then what that gives us energy. Okay, so this is what helps to power the cell. So glucose comes from our food, oxygen comes from the air, and so by combining those two things together, that then we get the energy source that our cells need. So let's kind of recap a few other ideas that we need to know about respiration. The first one is that occurs in the mitochondria. Okay, so that's the organelle inside our cell where this changing process is happening. So it's responsible for this process of respiration. Okay, so they're the ones that kind of look a little bit like kidney beans with these kind of squiggly sort of lines inside. Clearly, I am a science teacher, not an art teacher, but that's kind of what they look like. And so the mitochondria is where this happens and occurs in all cells. Okay, so every cell needs to undergo this process of respiration in order to survive. That's also including plant cells, animal cells, fungi, etc., etc. So that they're all involved. They all need to go through this process in order to give them a source of energy. Okay, so we've talked about respiration as this process that helps to provide cells with energy, that it involves, it's a chemical process that happens inside all cells, specifically happens in the mitochondria, that we're involving changing glucose and oxygen, combining together to make carbon dioxide and water. And during this process that then we have an energy source that the cell can use to power and do a whole lot of other functions. As I mentioned before, that this is quite a simplistic kind of overview way to look at it. There's a lot more steps in between, some other chemicals that are involved that transport things from point A to point B, that as you study biology in the future, you'll go into more detail. All right, thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.